Chapter 3396, Chapter 471 Move? Chapter 3396, Chapter 471 Move? Chapter 470, 1 Move? 6. Mad Blade laughed at Shifeng's comment. Do you think you're the War God's Temple's grand adjudicator? War goddesses were the War God's Temple's strongest combatants, and the birth of every war goddess came with great difficulty. Even the War God's Temple's main headquarters did not have many war goddesses operating directly under it. Meanwhile, the War God's Temple's Grand Adjudicator was the only person with authority to command the main headquarters' war goddesses. However, as soon as Mad Blade finished speaking, Shifeng injected 5,000 more units of 7 luminaries crystal into the Feather of Oath, causing 5 lightning bolts to descend from the sky. Then, once the dust settled, 5 more lithe figures appeared before Shifeng. Of these women, some wielded shields, some wielded greatswords, and some wielded great bows. Everyone involuntarily gasped when they saw the 6 war goddesses standing in a row in front of Shifeng. How is this possible? Unrestrained Lionheart's eyes nearly fell out of their sockets when he saw the 6 war goddesses. War goddesses. 6 of them. Even the War God's Temple's main headquarters would probably have to send all of its war goddesses to match this number. Old Blade. Kill him quickly. While everyone was in a daze, Moving Mountain suddenly shouted at Mad Blade, his powerful voice coming from his 4-meter-tall body echoing throughout the entire basin. Hearing this, Mad Blade instantly snapped out of his daze and used Storm Realm, his legendary greatsword's additional skill, at Shifeng. War goddesses were existences rivaling dragons. Moreover, as they were NPCs, they could not only coordinate their movements with each other, but they could do it better than even players. If 6 Tier 4 war goddesses worked together, they could possibly slay even a Tier 5 dragon. Immediately, with Mad Blade as the center, space-shredding wind blades spread to the surroundings, covering a 1,000-yard radius. Too late. When Shifeng saw Mad Blade using a large-scale destruction spell, he promptly had the war goddesses take action. Subsequently, the 6 level 150, Tier 4 war goddesses could be seen attacking Mad Blade simultaneously. However, none of them attacked him with their weapons. Instead, they created numerous divine runes around Mad Blade, suppressing him and preventing any of his mana from spreading. Tier 4 medium-scale combination super spell, Sacred Seal. In the eyes of most players, war goddesses were only NPCs who had mastered the art of combat to the extreme. Few people knew that war goddesses were in possession of numerous super spells, especially combination super spells. War goddesses could cast small-scale combination super spells if there were 3 of them working together, medium-scale if there were 6, large-scale if there were 9, and super-large-scale if there were 12. This was why the goddess of space could go against primordial gods with the help of 12 war goddesses. Although Shifeng could only summon Tier 4 war goddesses right now, a Tier 4 medium-scale combination superspell's might was already close to matching that of Tier 6 curses. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed throughout the basin, stupefying everyone present. He's gone. Is this the power of war goddesses? When unrestrained Lionheart saw that the place where Mad Blade originally stood had transformed into an empty void, an indescribable sense of shock filled him. Although unrestrained Lionheart knew that war goddesses were terrifying foes to face, the ones Shifeng summoned were only at Tier 4. In his opinion, even if 6 Tier 4 war goddesses worked together, they would be fortunate if they could even pin down Mad Blade. It should be known that Mad Blade was a saint who had been active for over a century already. Now that he had risen to Tier 5, with the help of his legendary weapon, the average Tier 6 expert would be helpless against him. They might even get killed if they weren't careful. Yet, now, Mad Blade had failed to survive even one move against the 6 Tier 4 war goddesses. Incredible. Guild leader Black Flame is simply incredible. When Cross saw Mad Blade getting obliterated, his eyes glowed with uncontrolled excitement. At least we're safe now. Thousand Scars thought in excitement and relief when she saw the 6 war goddesses instantly eliminate Mad Blade. Mad Blade was one of the strongest players present. If even Mad Blade couldn't survive one move against the 6 war goddesses, it should be simple for their team to break out of this encirclement. After all, even if all of the other rabbles worked together, the threat they posed to their team wouldn't be comparable to the threat Mad Blade posed. Meanwhile, following Mad Blade's death, ugly expressions appeared on the players belonging to the two human alliances. It was especially so for the Red Dragon Nation members on Morrow's side. "What should we do now, Lord Morrow?" Desert Web quietly asked as he looked at Morrow. The combination attack of those 6 war goddesses rivaled Tier 6 curses. If Vice Guild leader Fry's team focuses solely on escaping, moving mountain and the others won't be able to stop them, Fry herself possessed astonishing strength. Even if numerous ordinary 5th floor experts worked together, they would have difficulty keeping her pinned. Only veteran saints like Mad Blade and Moving Mountain could pin and kill her. This was also why the two human alliances had chosen the 2 veteran saints to represent them. Now that Mad Blade had gotten killed, if Shifeng had his 6 war goddesses keep Moving Mountain distracted, Fry could easily use one of her trump cards to escape. "Nothing. We keep on waiting," Morrow said with a faint smile. Then, looking at Shifeng's distant figure, he continued, "It seems Black Flame is indeed capable. It's no wonder Fry is willing to pay an exorbitant price to hire him. It's a pity that Mad Blade and Moving Mountain aren't the only players present capable of killing Tier 6 experts. The Holy Race's experts." When Desert Web heard Morrow's words, he turned to look at the Holy Race players who had been calmly watching from the side throughout this entire time. The strength of Holy Race players was apparent to all in the Eternal Realm. At the same tier, most human players were not a match for Holy Race players. In the case of Holy Race experts capable of using Holy Aura, even titled experts would have to work in pairs just to take on one such expert. Moreover, these were only the most common Holy Race experts they were talking about. Among Holy Race experts, the truly powerful ones were capable of using their Holy Aura to execute holy arts. According to the information human players have obtained thus far, holy arts could be categorized into 3 ranks. Similar to combat techniques, the ranks were bronze, silver, and gold. Even experts capable of using bronze holy arts could already rival the average saint-ranked expert. As far as Morrow knew, out of the Holy Race players present, over 30 could use bronze holy arts, and 5 could use silver holy arts. Of the latter group, the leaders of the 2 Holy Race powers could even use advanced silver holy arts. Meanwhile, after silence enveloped the battlefield for a short moment, the 2 Holy Race powers members suddenly stormed forward and surrounded Fry's team. "Bait! What are you trying to do?" Moving Mountain shouted as he looked at the leader of one of the Holy Race powers. "Don't forget our agreement. You still dare bring up our agreement after this embarrassing display," the man named Bait said disdainfully. "If not for your ability to seal space, do you honestly think we need to partner with you aliens? Since you have already proven yourself incapable of keeping them here, it is our turn to act. You just need to keep locking down this space. If you can't do that much, don't even think of getting any of the loot." After saying so, Bait gestured for his subordinates to attack. Subsequently, Bait and more than 50 other Holy Race experts charged Fry's team together. Every one of these Holy Race experts was at Tier 5. When clad in their holy auras, their presence was no weaker than that of Tier 5 saints. Moreover, for among them had presences no weaker than Mad Blade. Fry couldn't help but gasp when she saw this scene. A force of 50+ Tier 5 saints and 4 experts on Mad Blade's caliber was something even the Red Dragon Nation would have difficulty fielding. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3397, Chapter 471, The Zenith of Techniques. Chapter 3397, Chapter 471, The Zenith of Techniques. Chapter 471, The Zenith of Techniques. TL Notes. Made a change to Chapter 470, 4 experts on Mad Blade's caliber. Changed to 5 experts on Mad Blade's caliber. Is this the Holy Race's strength? Didn't our reports say they only have 30 bronze holy art users? Damn it. These bastards have been hiding their strength. How are we supposed to contest for the loot now? The human players present were greatly shocked when they saw the composition of the Holy Race team charging Fry's team. Saint-ranked experts were extremely rare in the Greater God's domain. Even among the various upper-ranking hegemonic powers, saints would be put into core executive positions at the very minimum. Of the human powers present, even if the 17 guilds and 4 conglomerates joined forces, they wouldn't have more than 20 saints. Yet, now, it was revealed that the Holy Race's powers had over 50 saint-ranked experts. With such a huge disparity in numbers, many of the human players present couldn't help but suspect whether they could even get any of the items dropped by Fry's team. Lord Morrow, the Holy Race's strength, after looking at the 50-plus Holy Race experts charging Fry's team, Desert Web couldn't help but turn to Morrow worriedly. Hasn't it exceeded our expectations by too much? According to their investigation, the Holy Race's 2 powers should, at most, have 30 experts who rivaled human saints. They had also prepared to assist Fry's team escape under this assumption. Now that it was revealed that there were more than 50 saint-ranked experts on the Holy Race's side, if they proceeded with their plan to help Fry's team escape, not only was there a high risk of their plan failing, but they would also risk getting themselves killed. At this time, Morrow's complexion had turned incredibly gloomy. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Originally, he thought he could safely play the role of the oriole. Yet, the mantis he was looking to prey on turned out to be a lion. If he insisted on third-partying in this situation, he and his team were bound to face certain death. After a quick deliberation, Morrow hurriedly said to Desert Web, "Contact Moving Mountain. Tell him I have a way for us to secure the Courtyard of Space's loot, but I want half of it." Understood. Hearing Morrow's command, Desert Web hurriedly ran over to Moving Mountain. While Desert Web was rushing toward Moving Mountain, Fry, who was originally filled with the hope of escaping, revealed a bitter smile. "It seems you won't get to earn that 200 million, Guild Leader Black Flame," Fry jokingly said to Shafong. "Instead of the entire team, I hope you can safely get Crest out. I will pay you 50 million star coins if you succeed." Fry did not hold any hopes of her escaping safely since she knew she was everyone's primary target. However, it might be possible for Crest to escape since nobody was paying any particular attention to him. When unrestrained Lionheart overheard Fry's words, he promptly instructed everyone in the team to provide cover for Crest's escape. Likewise, he, too, understood that there was no way for their team to escape from this place in one piece. It should be known that the Holy Race's powers had 5 experts on Madblade's caliber. Meanwhile, 3 were enough to keep Shafong's war goddesses distracted, while the remaining 2 could keep Fry pinned. Without Fry and the 6 war goddesses, the Holy Race's remaining 50-plus saint-ranked experts could easily slaughter the rest of their team. "Don't worry, Miss Fry. I will collect those 200 million star coins from you," Shafong calmly said with a smile. "I will open a path afterward, so try to keep up as much as possible." "You will open a path?" When Fry heard Shafong's words, she couldn't help but switch her gaze between Shafong and the 50-plus Holy Race experts in confusion, thinking that Shafong must be joking with her. This was an encirclement formed by more than 50 saint-ranked experts they were talking about. In a situation where less than 300 yards separated both sides, their team's chances of breaking through the encirclement were practically zero. Even if they tried to break through from one specific direction, they would have to face a minimum of 20 saint-ranked experts and 3 Holy Race experts of Madblade's caliber. Charge. However, Shafong did not give Fry and the others any time to think. Immediately, he charged forward in the direction of the Corrosion Mountain Range's exit. Seeing this, Fry gritted her teeth and signaled unrestrained Lionheart and the others with her eyes. Then, everyone quickly followed Shafong. "Do they want to go down fighting?" When Bait saw the actions of Fry's team, he looked toward the 4 male Holy Race players nearby and said, "Deathclaw, Heavy Fist, you 4 gather at my location. We'll eliminate them in one fell swoop." Had Fry's team chosen to split up and try to break through from multiple directions, he would have had to split his forces to prevent anyone from slipping through. However, now that Fry had chosen to concentrate her team's strength, he could gather the 4 other experts capable of using silver holy arts, and the 5 of them could work together. Got it. The 4 Holy Race men with presences as powerful as Mad Blade nodded and quickly congregated at Bait's location. Although Shafong and the others moved very quickly, the Holy Race experts who had mastered silver holy arts were even quicker. Before Shafong and the others could get within 50 yards of the encirclement, Bait and the others had already grouped up. "You 4 take care of that summoner. "I'll take care of the woman," Bate said as he swept his gaze across the war goddesses. He did not intend to take any risks. Since the 6 war goddesses were summoned creatures, they would disappear if their summoner died. In that case, killing Shafong would be the most efficient way to eliminate them. Upon hearing Bate's arrangement, Deathclaw and the others charged at Shafong without hesitation, their bodies vanishing on the spot. As experts capable of using silver holy arts, they benefited much more from their holy aura than other holy race experts. As a result, they could move even faster than Mad Blade when they got serious. So fast. Fry was greatly shocked when she saw Deathclaw and the others disappearing from her sight. Even though her attention was on Deathclaw and the others this entire time, they moved so quickly that she only managed to catch a glimpse of their advance. As for everyone else on her team, they probably didn't even catch a glimpse. When unrestrained Lionheart saw Deathclaw's group disappearing, he promptly shouted, "Black Flame, dodge." Although unrestrained Lionheart couldn't keep up with the speed of Deathclaw's group, even a fool could tell that the 4 experts were targeting Shafong. Unfortunately, apart from shouting a reminder, there was nothing else he could do to help Shafong. "It might be the smartest decision for you to target me, but it's a pity you have no idea what you are facing," Shafong thought, smiling when he saw Deathclaw's group disappearing. Heroic pledge. With just a thought from Shafong, one of the god crystals in Shafong's bag space merged with the Feather of Oath. Immediately, a ripple of power spread across the entire battlefield, causing everyone present to shudder involuntarily. Meanwhile, the origin of this ripple was a spear-wielding war goddess. "Something's not right. Retreat," Bate shouted at Deathclaw and the others through the team chat. Although he had no idea what had suddenly changed, his instincts warned him of grave danger. Deathclaw and others also instinctively felt something was amiss, the alarm bells in their minds blaring at full volume. Without a second thought, they promptly fled in the direction they came from. However, the instant Deathclaw and the others began to retreat, a spear-wielding woman exuding a sacred aura suddenly appeared in their path. Then, this woman split into 4 identical copies of herself and executed 3 attacks against them. Although they had tried to defend themselves against the spear-wielding woman, the first attack tore down their defenses, the second attack pierced their bodies, and the third attack disintegrated their bodies. The 3 attacks happened slowly in the perception of the players nearby. However, in reality, the entire process happened in an instant, and those watching from afar only saw a bright flash enveloping Deathclaw's group. Then, when the flash faded, only a spear-wielding war goddess could be seen standing where Deathclaw's group originally stood, the woman radiating an aura that caused even the Tier 4 players to stand over 1,000 yards away to tremble in fear. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3398, Chapter 472, Becoming a Legend in One Battle. Chapter 3398, Chapter 472, Becoming a Legend in One Battle. Chapter 472, Becoming a Legend in One Battle. They died? Aren't those 4 supposed to be able to use silver holy arts? Can someone tell me what just happened? Upon seeing Deathclaw's group of 4 getting killed, the human players spectating from a distance were immediately dumbfounded. Many of the human players present had conducted an investigation into the holy race, so they knew that holy race experts capable of using silver holy arts could rival experts such as Mad Blade. Previously, when Mad Blade died, everyone could still see how it happened. However, none of them managed to see how Deathclaw's group died. All they saw was a bright flash. Then, the 4 experts were gone. Impossible. Bate found this situation even more unbelievable than the spectating human players. Even though he had clearly seen how Deathclaw's group died, his mind still couldn't accept this situation. Experts capable of using silver holy arts were top-tier existences even among the holy race's experts. If Deathclaw's group of 4 worked together, they could even hold their ground against a Tier 6 holy god. Yet, now, they failed to last even one move against a human NPC. At this time, Fry and the others standing behind Shafong were likewise astonished by this development. Are Tier 4 war goddesses supposed to be this strong? Unrestrained Lionheart couldn't help but doubt his knowledge of God's domain as he looked at the spear-wielding war goddess. No, that's not right. Seemingly noticing something, Fry promptly used an identification skill on the spear-wielding war goddess. Then, she exclaimed, Tier 5. She's a Tier 5 war goddess. Tier 5. Unrestrained Lionheart also hurriedly used his identification skill when he heard Fry's claim. Then, with a look of disbelief, he exclaimed, how is this possible? Apart from Fry and Unrestrained Lionheart, those who had noticed that the spear-wielding war goddess had risen to Tier 5 were also shocked by this development, and they couldn't help but look at Shifeng in confusion. A Tier 5 war goddess? How can he command a Tier 5 war goddess? Is he an NPC? Heavens! I must be dreaming. Who is that black flame? Holy Race players might be unfamiliar with the existence of war goddesses, but it was a different story for human players. It was especially so for the human experts present. War goddesses were existences that rivaled dragons of the same tier. For many of the Tier 5 experts present, a Tier 4 war goddess might not be too big of a threat. However, if they had to go up against a Tier 5 war goddess, that'd be no different than knocking on death's door. For players, a war goddess of the same tier was essentially unbeatable. Unless, of course, a player had mastered a complete set of gold combat techniques or were fully equipped with legendary weapons and equipment. This was because a war goddess had mastered the art of combat to the extremes, and every one of her moves was basically a gold combat technique. If the many Tier 5 experts present worked together, it would still be possible for them to survive a fight against a Tier 5 dragon. They would even have hope of slaying it. However, if they had to fight a Tier 5 war goddess, they would have zero chances of winning. All they could do was wait for death to claim them. In the current Eternal Realm, a Tier 5 war goddesses was absolutely invincible among players. Logically, it shouldn't be possible for current players to wield such strength in the Eternal Realm. Meanwhile, after a moment of silence, Shifeng and the others quickly exited the basin with the help of the Tier 5 war goddesses' frightening deterrence. Throughout this process, neither the human players nor the Holy Race players present dared to get close to Shifeng and the others. Everyone simply stood aside and watched as the team left. Even Bait, who commanded the two Holy Race powers, took the initiative to step aside, not daring to show any hostilities against Shifeng's team. While Bait was confident he could survive against even a Tier 5 dragon for some time, he did not think he could last even a moment against the Tier 5 war goddess. A Tier 5 dragon might have vastly superior basic attributes than he did, but so long as he didn't try to block any of the dragon's attacks and relied only on evasion, he'd be able to hold out for quite some time. However, the Tier 5 war goddess not only possessed greater basic attributes than him, but she also had an overwhelming advantage in technique standards. He simply stood no chance against such an existence. When Shifeng and the others finally disappeared from the basin, the players in front of the courtyard of Space's teleportation gate sighed in relief. I'm afraid we will have a hard time explaining ourselves to the Grand Elders now, Lord Morrow, Desert Web said, his mind at a loss on what to do when he saw Fry's team disappearing. Morrow had borrowed many experts from the Red Dragon Nation's Grand Elders for the sake of securing the courtyard of Space's loot. Yet, now, he had failed to obtain anything. There was no way the Grand Elders would spare him easily for wasting their subordinates' precious development time. Meanwhile, Parker was filled with regrets when he saw Fry's team successfully escaping. He would have been the #1 expert working under Fry if he had chosen to stay with Fry. With the loot Fry obtained from the world mode courtyard of Space, she could significantly elevate her position in the Red Dragon Nation. At the same time, he could almost certainly become an elder of the pseudo-apex power, and he wouldn't have to bend his knees to the likes of Morrow. Black flame, is it? As if he did not hear any of Desert Web's words, Morrow glared at the place where Shifeng disappeared with eyes full of hatred. A minor character like you with no background dares to foil my plans? I will let you know how foolish of a decision you've made for helping Fry today. Are you thinking of reporting Black Flame's information to the Grand Elders, Lord Morrow? Desert Web asked, a thought suddenly coming to his head when he heard Morrow's words. That's right. Morrow sneered. The Grand Elders want an explanation? In that case, Black Flame is the best explanation. Despite having no background, he has the ability to summon a Tier 5 war goddess. Moreover, This ability likely came from the Courtyard of Space. Yet, Fry has given it to Black Flame instead of the guild. What do you think the Grand Elders will think about this? Realization dawned on Desert Web when he heard Moros' words. It was true that Black Flame had created a legend today in the Corrosion Mountain range. However, a treasure that could be used to summon war goddesses wasn't something a minor character with no background could obtain. The only explanation was that Black Flame had acquired it from the Courtyard of Space. Logically, Fry should have contributed this treasure to the guild. Yet, she had given it to an outsider. If the guild's Grand Elders were to learn of this, they would definitely be greatly dissatisfied. Subsequently, Desert Web followed Moros' instructions and conveyed everything that happened in the Corrosion Mountain range to the Red Dragon Nation's Grand Elders, making sure to put emphasis on the war goddesses. He also spread this information to other powers. For a time, news of Black Flame creating a legend with the help of a Tier 5 war goddess quickly spread across the Eternal Realm, causing countless players to feel shocked and envious. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3399, Chapter 473, Level 6 Mana. Chapter 3399, Chapter 473, Level 6 Mana. Chapter 473, Level 6 Mana in the Primeval Forest outside the Corrosion Mountain range. Will you really not consider joining us at White Sail Town, Guild Leader Black Flame? Fry asked with a look of concern. By now, news of you having the ability to summon a Tier 5 war goddess should have spread. You will be on your own if you continue developing in Pharos Town. Even if you can summon a Tier 5 war goddess, you can't have her summoned by your side all the time. I strongly suggest you move to White Sail Town. My forces are operating from there, and the town is also situated close to the Bloodhell Mountain range. We can offer you a lot of help. Upon hearing Fry's offer, Thousand Scars, Death Omen, and White Owl turned to look at Shifeng with hopeful eyes. Although there were some conflicts and hostility between them and Shifeng in the past, they were currently under orders by Nameless Blade to join Zero Wing. Shifeng's performance in the Courtyard of Space also allowed them to see just how powerful of an expert he was. As it so happened, the three of them were using White Sail Town as their base of operations. So, if Shifeng moved his base of operations to White Sail Town, not only could they have a greater chance at fulfilling Nameless Blade's mission, but they could also hopefully learn a thing or two from Shifeng. However, Shifeng shook his head in response to Fry's offer, saying, "Thank you for the offer, Miss Fry, but I have already spread my roots too deeply into Pharos Town. I also have many ongoing affairs in Pharos Town. I can no longer afford to move my operations to other towns." There were many opportunities available in the Eternal Realm, especially during the early exploration stage. Of these opportunities, a major one would be transportation. Because of the Eternal Realm's restrictions, players couldn't use any land mounts for travel. They could only rely on their feet or flying mounts at the extraordinary rank or higher. And even if players had an extraordinary flying mount, they could only use it for roughly 4 hours a day. This greatly restricted players' ability to develop rapidly in the Eternal Realm. However, flying mounts weren't the only mode of transport available to players during the Eternal Realm's early stages. Sky ships. Sky ships were flying vehicles that traveled between the Eternal Realm's various NPC cities and NPC fortresses. Even after the early exploration stage ended, sky ships remained the primary mode of transport for players to travel and transport cargo across great distances. Hence, any NPC city or NPC fortress that had an airport was highly coveted by players and powers, their lands being worth their weight in gold. Currently, access to the Eternal Realm's NPC cities remained closed off to players, but access to NPC fortresses was already open. The only problem was that these NPC fortresses were situated in dangerous high-leveled maps, and these were not players that current players could casually set foot into. Fortunately, Shifeng knew of a medium NPC fortress situated nearby Pharos Town. The Lightless Fortress. In addition to being an NPC fortress situated near Pharos Town, the Lightless Fortress was also the only safe haven situated on the path leading to the level 160 world-ranked regional map, the 100 Eyes Canyon. Meanwhile, The Hundred Eyes Canyon was a place where secret treasures dropped. During Shifeng's previous life, even upper-ranking hegemonic powers were erased from existence amidst the struggle for hegemony over Hundred Eyes Canyon. As for the Lightless Fortress, the value of its lands had skyrocketed thousands of times. Players could make a fortune simply by renting out the fortress's lands. Before the courtyard of Space Raid, Shifeng was only a Tier 4 Sword Emperor with hardly any money to his name. Even if he had the mutated Frostflame Dragon to aid him, he still didn't have any ideas on how he could afford the Lightless Fortress's lands. However, not only did he have 20 eternal gold coins on hand now, but he also obtained the Divine Spatial Potion. With the potion, he could attempt ascending to Tier 5. So long as he could successfully create a Tier 5 legendary mana body and get promoted into a Tier 5 Sword Saint, he could try to reach the Lightless Fortress. Can't you at least humor me and consider my offer for a moment? Fry shook her head and sighed when she saw Shifeng rejecting her offer without hesitation. Fine, suit yourself. I will have someone transfer the 200 million star coins I promised to your account soon. If you come into any trouble in the future, feel free to find me at White Sail Town. So long as it's not trouble on today's scale, I can more or less give you some help. I will have to thank you in advance then, Miss Fry, Shifeng said, finding Fry's offer surprising. He didn't think the woman would be so generous. Subsequently, Shifeng parted ways with Fry's team and returned to Pharos Town with Desolate Fury's group of 3. Pharos Town, Alchemist Association's VIP room, while Desolate Fury, Cross, and La Roja had left for the town's training center to study the flowing space combat technique. Shifeng paid a visit to the Alchemy Association to collect the earth and magic flowers he had commissioned the association to purchase. Shifeng couldn't help but be astonished when he saw the NPC receptionist before him taking out bag after bag of earth and magic flowers. In less than 2 days, all of the money he had left with the Alchemy Association was used up, and he ended up with over 40,000 earth and magic flowers. Because of his actions, though, many other players had also started purchasing earth and magic flowers, while some were stalking the players purchasing these flowers. Evidently, all of these players suspected that there might be some great use for these flowers. However, Shifeng did not mind this situation. With the sacred phantom ring's disguise, most players would have no way of tracking him, let alone finding out the true purpose of the earth and magic flowers. After Shifeng placed another commission to purchase earth and magic flowers and put in a deposit of 1 eternal gold, he quickly returned to the Collet Hotel. Inside an advanced suite on the Collet Hotel's 3rd floor. Divine Spatial Potion, don't disappoint me, Shifeng mentally prayed as he took out a bottle made of 7 luminaries crystal from his bag. Theoretically, the Divine Spatial Potion could forcibly increase a player's affinity with their power system by 1 level. However, whether it could actually raise his mana affinity to level 6 was uncertain. After all, he had only ever heard about the Divine Spatial Potion. Never had he used it before. Meanwhile, in the Greater God's domain, individuals with level 5 mana affinity were already as rare as a phoenix's feather. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that anyone who had reached this standard would be a great Grandmaster Magician or higher. As for the rumored level 6 mana affinity, he had never heard of anyone reaching it during his previous life. Currently, it was necessary for him to create a Tier 5 legendary mana body if he wanted to reach Tier 5 without failing his legendary quest. However, if he followed the orthodox way of improving his mastery over magic arrays, it would take him a long time before he could achieve any significant improvements. If he wanted to do so quickly, his only option would be to improve his mana affinity. After calming his anxious heart, Shifeng removed the lid on the Divine Spatial Potion and consumed the bright red liquid in the bottle. Gulp. As soon as the bright red liquid flowed into his stomach, Shifeng felt an indescribable sense of heat spreading across his entire body. Immediately afterward, he felt as if the mana within his body was set ablaze. Violent. His mana had become incomparably violent. Even with his bountiful combat experience, Shifeng still nearly lost consciousness due to the scorching pain coming from all over his body. After Shifeng endured this pain for more than 10 minutes, the pain finally subsided. Then, peace returned to his world. Is this what level 6 mana feels like? When Shifeng looked at the slightly messy room around him, It was as if the world around him was laid bare before him. At this time, no secrets could hide from his senses. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3400, Chapter 474, Legendary Mana Body. Chapter 3400, Chapter 474, Legendary Mana Body. Chapter 474, Legendary Mana Body. Collet Hotel, 3rd floor advanced suite. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, Shifeng continuously waved his fingers across the space before him, his actions causing the room's environment to change from normal to scorching hot to freezing cold and to windy as fuck. It was as if he had become the room's absolute overlord, and he could change the space's environment however he wanted. Shifeng continued this experimentation for several minutes before finally stopping, excitement and joy coloring his eyes. Incredible. The benefits of having level 6 mana affinity are simply incredible. Shifeng was greatly shocked by the effects of having level 6 mana affinity. At this moment, no secrets could hide from his eyes, and it was as if the doors to a new world had opened for him. The veil that previously obscured his view of the magic elements and their operations had vanished, and he could now see everything with perfect clarity. He didn't even need to use his eyes to perceive the magic elements around him anymore. However, even more surprising was that his control over the magic elements had undergone a qualitative transformation. Normally, he would need to use his own mana to drive the magic elements of the world around him. However, he no longer needed to do that. Now, he could manipulate the magic elements within a 300-yard radius with just his thoughts. He could even use this method to make the magic elements operate in a unique pattern. In other words, he could now achieve world creation with just a thought. It should be known that only a very small portion of Tier 5 NPCs could achieve world creation. Moreover, most, if not all, of them needed to use their mana to guide the magic elements around them. Yet, Shifeng did not need to do so. With just a thought, he could make the mana within a 300-yard radius move only for him, essentially creating an independent world around himself. This was simply incredible. His control became even greater when it came to the magic elements within a 50-yard radius. Within a 50-yard radius, he couldn't simply manipulate them as if they were his own. They were his own. It was as if his body had expanded to cover a 50-yard radius, and the degree of control he could exert over this space was vastly greater than what he could achieve with world creation. World creation only allowed him to change the operating rules of the magic elements around him, thereby achieving a suppressing effect on his opponents. But now, within a 50-yard radius, he couldn't simply suppress his opponent's ability to use external mana. Instead, he had absolute control over the magic elements, and he could use this absolute control to completely deprive his opponent's ability to use external mana. Not only that, but he could also have the ambient magic elements invade his opponent's bodies, forcing them to use a portion of their mana to defend against these invading magic elements. And if his opponents chose not to defend, they would die once enough magic elements invaded their bodies. It was similar to the corrosion effect of the mysterious energy in God's domain. At this time, Shifeng doubted that anyone under the realm of saints could use even a shred of their mana once they entered within 50 yards of him. If he didn't permit them to use mana, they would most likely have to fight him using only their physical bodies. I wonder how many mana gathering arrays I can manipulate with my current level of mana control. When Shifeng looked at the surrounding mana flowing under his will, he couldn't help but start constructing Great Grandmaster mana gathering arrays. Previously, when his mana affinity was only at level 5, he could manipulate up to 64 Great Grandmaster mana gathering arrays simultaneously. If other Great Grandmaster magicians were to learn of it, they would definitely be given a fright. This was because the average Great Grandmaster magician could only manipulate around 30 Great Grandmaster arrays simultaneously, while stronger ones could manipulate around 40. With the ability to manipulate 64 Great Grandmaster arrays, Shifeng could already single-handedly operate a small-sized Great Grandmaster barrier to trap a Tier 6 legendary monster. Unfortunately, even the ability to manipulate 64 Great Grandmaster arrays wasn't enough for Shifeng to construct a Tier 5 legendary mana body. Subsequently, Great Grandmaster mana gathering arrays could be seen appearing around Shifeng one after another. 10. 20, 30. As if manipulating these mana-gathering arrays was no trouble at all for Shifeng, their numbers rapidly increased. In no time, Shifeng had already created over 100 mana-gathering arrays, and he could control all of them simultaneously. This result was vastly better than what he achieved when he only had level 5 mana affinity. I'm already at 122 mana-gathering arrays, but why does it feel like I'm only manipulating 40? Shifeng couldn't help but be astonished when he felt how little strain from manipulating 122 Great Grandmaster mana-gathering arrays. At this rate, even manipulating 180 mana-gathering arrays shouldn't be a problem. It should be known that 180 Great Grandmaster arrays were enough to form a medium-sized Great Grandmaster barrier. Meanwhile, such a barrier could kill a Tier 6 expert easily. In fact, many of the fortresses situated in the Void Sea were only using defensive barriers of such standard. 130, 150, 160. As Shifeng thought, he only reached his limit after creating his 188th mana-gathering array. Looking at the 188 Great Grandmaster mana-gathering arrays in the room, Shifeng breathed a deep sigh of relief. Then, he began constructing his mana body. Now that the number of mana-gathering arrays he could manipulate had drastically increased, he obviously could not use the same structure he used on his last attempt at creating a Tier 5 mana body. Fortunately, Shifeng developed many mana body structures during his time on the 100 Refinement Building's second floor. Among them were structures using over 100 mana-gathering arrays. It was just that he couldn't use these structures since he had limited mana control at the time. Now, though, he could put those structures to use. Although he didn't plan those structures to house as many as 188 Great Grandmaster mana-gathering arrays, he should be able to put them to use so long as he made some minor modifications. Time passed rapidly. After trying various modifications for more than 10 hours, Shifeng finally reached his ideal mana body structure. It's make or break now. After taking one last look at his completed mana body structure, Shifeng began guiding mana to activate it. As he had a Tier 3 legendary mana body, the strength of the Tier 5 mana body he created needed to reach 270% of his Tier 3 mana body. Previously, even with the help of the 100 Refinement Building's second floor environment, he only managed to reach 255%, and increasing it by even 1% more was a huge challenge. Currently, although Shifeng had increased the number of mana-gathering arrays he could manipulate by nearly threefold, he still wasn't particularly confident in creating a Tier 5 legendary mana body. After all, he had never even heard about Tier 5 legendary mana bodies existing. Subsequently, the mana-gathering arrays in the mana body structure activated one after another. At the same time, like a whale drawing water from its surroundings, the mana body structure instantly sucked away all of the mana in the room. Once the room became devoid of mana, the mana body structure even began to draw mana from the void. After this process continued for roughly 10 minutes, the sound of a system notification rang loudly in the depths of Shifeng's mind. System, congratulations. You have successfully constructed a new mana body. The constructed mana body's strength is at 291% of your current mana body and has reached the Tier 5 standard. The created mana body is evaluated to be at the advanced legendary rank. Do you wish to replace your current mana body with it and get promoted to Tier 5? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3401, Chapter 475, Tier 5, Sword Law Saint. Chapter 3401, Chapter 475, Tier 5, Sword Law Saint. Chapter 475, Tier 5, Sword Law Saint. 291%? Advanced Legendary? Shifeng was stunned by the system notification. A Tier 5 mana body that had reached the Advanced Legendary rank. Originally, he didn't have much hope for constructing a Tier 5 legendary mana body, even if he already had level 6 mana affinity and could simultaneously manipulate 188 Great Grandmaster mana gathering arrays. After all, the environment he was currently in was nowhere near comparable to the 100 Refinement Building's second floor environment. Honestly, he would have been overjoyed even if he had achieved the minimum requirement of 270%. After all, Even Tier 5 advanced epic mana bodies were exceedingly rare in the Greater Gods domain. Any player who managed to construct one could instantly be made into a reserve core executive of an apex power. For the paragons nurtured by the Greater Gods domain's various powers, climbing tiers was not a problem. If they wanted to, they could even ascend to Tier 6 within a very short period of time. However, no paragon worth their salt would do such a thing, and neither would the power they belonged to let them do such a thing. This was because the strength of Tier 6 players could vary tremendously depending on the foundation they've established for themselves during their earlier tiers. The standard of a player's mana was especially crucial when getting promoted to Tier 6. If a player lacked sufficiently strong mana, they would face great difficulty when using Tier 6 skills and spells. The complexity of skills and spells in God's domain increased exponentially with tier. By Tier 5, if a titled expert didn't have a Tier 5 epic mana body, the best they could do was achieve an 80% completion rate for their Tier 5 skills and spells. That wasn't even enough to exhibit 100% of the effects of their Tier 5 skills and spells. Normally, only with a Tier 5 epic mana body could a titled expert achieve an 85% completion rate and exhibit 100% of their Tier 5 skills and spells effects. Not to mention, the stronger a player's Tier 5 mana body was, the more help they could get when they constructed their divine body. If a player did not have a Tier 5 epic mana body, they would have great difficulty constructing a Tier 6 epic divine body, and they would not be able to exhibit the strength of a true Tier 6 player. Hence, there were so many geniuses and paragons in the Greater Gods domain choosing to stay at Tier 4 for a long time. Unless they could construct a Tier 5 epic mana body, it was highly unlikely they would choose to progress to Tier 5. Otherwise, they would have no chance of competing against the Greater Gods domain's apex experts. Meanwhile, a Tier 5 basic legendary mana body should already be more than enough for a player to join the ranks of legends in the Greater Gods domain. So, Shifeng couldn't even begin to imagine how much potential a Tier 5 advanced legendary mana body possessed. System. Congratulations! You have completed the second phase of the legendary Quest 100 Refinement mana body. Rewarding 5 levels and 100 free legacy skill points. System. You have activated the third phase of the legendary Quest 100 Refinement mana body. Quest content. Create a legendary divine body within 1 year. Rewards unknown. Penalties unknown. There's still a third phase. Shifeng couldn't help but frown when he saw the third phase of the 100 Refinement mana body quest. Moreover, similar to before, he had no say in activating the quest. It was true that the 100 Refinement mana body quest offered incredibly generous rewards. Just by completing the quest's first 2 phases, he had already earned 130 free legacy skill points. It should be known that players only received 1 free legacy skill point every 5 levels at Tier 3 and 2 for every 3 levels at Tier 4. While some epic quests would award roughly 5 free legacy skill points on completion, such quests were a minority among epic quests. In other words, completing the first 2 phases of the 100 Refinement body quest was no different than completing 26 epic quests. Meanwhile, it went without saying that the third phase would definitely offer even better rewards. However, the problem was that constructing a divine body was far more challenging than a Tier 5 mana body. Many paragons with Tier 5 advanced epic mana bodies could only construct a Tier 6 epic divine body with the help of apex powers. Yet, now, Shifeng needed to construct a legendary divine body. The third phase's difficulty was many times greater than the second phase. While Shifeng was having a headache over the new goal that had been forced onto him, another prompt came from the system. System, do you wish to replace your current mana body and get promoted to Tier 5? If you do not make a decision, you will automatically abandon the promotion after 30 seconds. Once that happens, you will have to construct another mana body when you wish to get promoted to Tier 5 in the future. Shifeng hurriedly chose to get promoted to Tier 5 when he saw this prompt. He did not wish to try his luck a second time. As soon as Shifeng chose to get promoted, the mana body structure he constructed promptly replaced his existing mana body. Then, it began hungrily devouring the mana coming from the void. After this process continued for roughly 10 minutes, Shifeng felt tremendous power overflowing from his body, causing the room's space to grow heavy. Currently, The density of the mana his body naturally radiated was already close to rivaling the mana contained in mana stones. Amazing. So, this is the strength of an advanced legendary mana body? System. Congratulations. You have become a Tier 5, Sword Law Saint, Sword Saint. All basic attributes plus 6,000, all resistances plus 600, mana recovery rate increased by 300%, mana strength increased by 100%, concentration increased by 100%, all physical, magical, and mental attacks received that are below Tier 5 will be weakened by 50%, all basic attributes increased by 180%, physique increased by 200%, and reaction speed improved by 120%. Rewarding 200 legacy skill points. System. The God of Time's curse has been weakened. The curse will only reduce your experience gain by 50% and double the gravity you experience now. Aside from his vastly superior mana body, the bonuses he received for becoming a Tier 5, Sword Law Saint were also frightening. When he became a Tier 5, Blade Saint during his previous life, he only received a bonus of 5,000 points to all basic attributes and a 150% increase to all basic attributes. Yet, this time, he had received an extra 1,000 points and a 30% increase to all basic attributes. With his current basic attributes, he could already fight a 6-winged Tier 5 Valkyrie of the same level in a frontal confrontation. However, compared to the bonuses he received, Shafone was more interested in the Tier 5 legacy skills he could learn. In God's domain, the importance of skills and spells increased along with tiers. After all, while players could only afford to learn a limited number of combat techniques and mana techniques, they could learn many skills and spells. Not to mention, some of the more powerful high-tiered skills and spells were stronger than even gold combat techniques. Hence, the more high-tiered skills and spells a player learned, the stronger they would become. Currently, even ordinary Tier 4 skill and spellbooks could go for several epic weapons and equipment each, while ordinary Tier 5 skill and spellbooks could go for a fragmented legendary item each. As for high-ranking Tier 5 skill and spellbooks, they could even be traded for several fragmented legendary weapons. Moreover, demand for them was almost always greater than supply. Meanwhile, legacy skills were among the few ways players could learn skills and spells at the Tier 5 peak rank and above. When Shafone got promoted into a Tier 5, Blade Saint during his previous life, he was only offered the choice to learn 2 Tier 5 peak skills and 1 Tier 5 apex skill. Yet, now, displayed in the window for his Tier 5 legacy skills were 2 Tier 5 ultimate skills and 1 Tier 5 super spell. TL notes, for reference, taken from Chapter 2868 of Main Story System. Congratulations! You have become a Tier 5, Blade Saint, Sword Saint. All basic attributes plus 5,000, all resistances plus 500, mana recovery rate increased by 300%, all physical and magical attacks received that are below Tier 5 will be weakened by 40%, all basic attributes increased by 150%, physique increased by 200%, and reaction speed improved by 100%. Rewarding 200 legacy skill points. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3402, Chapter 476, Unparalleled Confidence. Chapter 3402, Chapter 476, Unparalleled Confidence. Chapter 476, Unparalleled Confidence. TL notes, made a change to Chapter 473. Changed. Level 160 World-Ranked Regional Map, the 100 Eyes Canyon to Level 160 World Mode Regional Dungeon, the 100 Eyes Canyon. Fluctuating Lore, Action Type, requires Sword Tier 5 Ultimate Legacy Skill. Construct a world barrier with a radius of 20 yards around the user. The world barrier can block all attacks. The user's strength, agility, and reaction speed will be increased by 100% while in the barrier. Duration, 30 seconds cooldown, 10 minutes learning condition, 120 legacy skill points, Divine Annihilator, AoE destruction skill, Tier 5 Ultimate Legacy Skill. Cause an elemental collapse in the user's mana coverage area every second for 10 seconds. Every elemental collapse will carry 3 times the effect of the user's strength. Cooldown, 30 minutes learning condition, 120 legacy skill points. Sword Rakshasa requires Sword Tier 5 Super Legacy Spell. Consume one-handed sword at the epic rank or above to create a heavenly sword. The greater the consumed sword's quality, the greater the strength the heavenly sword would come with, up to the Tier 6 peak standard. Duration, 1 minute cooldown, 6 hours learning condition, 200 legacy skill points. Shifeng desperately wanted all 3 Tier 5 legacy skills, so much so that his eyes had gone red from staring at them. Ultimate skills and spells were incredibly powerful and valuable in the greater god's domain as they rivaled taboo skills and curses of the same tier. Among them, Tier 5 ultimate spells were especially valuable. The reason for this was due to the rarity of Tier 6 spellbooks. They were nearly as rare as legendary equipment, and most Tier 6 experts could only get their hands on a few if they didn't have a powerful backing. Meanwhile, to compensate for this deficiency, such Tier 6 experts would rely on Tier 5 ultimate spells as their trump cards. It seems I can only learn 2 for now. Shifeng didn't hesitate for long before choosing to learn Fluctuating Law and Sword Rakshasa. As soon as he did so, most of his legacy skill points disappeared. If he wanted to learn Divine Annihilator as well, he would have to accumulate points from level-ups and quest rewards. Meanwhile, after learning Fluctuating Law and Sword Rakshasa, Shifeng received a massive boost to his overall combat power. Fluctuating Law was a skill that could be used offensively and defensively, so it could achieve extraordinary effects in battle. Meanwhile, Sword Rakshasa was a super spell he could use as an additional trump card and to supplement his lack of Tier 5 spells. With the addition of Fluctuating Law and Sword Rakshasa on top of the significant bonuses he received from his Tier 5 promotion, Shifeng was confident he could now defeat Mad Blade, a veteran Tier 5 saint with a legendary weapon, without using the Feather of Oath. In the current Eternal Realm, Shifeng had already reached the apex in terms of personal combat power. Even without the Feather of Oath, he already had the necessary combat power to compete with the various powers. Now that I'm at Tier 5, I should head to the Lightless Fortress next, Shifeng thought as he stood up and left the hotel. Seeing as the sun was still up, he hurriedly summoned the mutated Frostflame Phantom Dragon and flew eastward to the Hundred Eyes Canyon. The Hundred Eyes Canyon was one of the few world mode regional dungeons discovered in the Eternal Realm during his previous life. All of the regional bosses and randomly occurring 20-man team dungeons in the Hundred Eyes Canyon had a chance of dropping secret treasures. As a result, the world mode regional dungeon became a place where all powers in the greater god's domain wished to have a hand in. Meanwhile, because the Lightless Fortress was the closest stronghold to the Hundred Eyes Canyon, the fortress naturally became highly contested by the various powers. This, in turn, led to the value of the fortress's lands and shops soaring by hundreds of times. Now that the Bloodhell mountain range would soon activate, once the various powers established themselves in the neutral NPC city situated on the map, it would only be a matter of time before they discovered the Lightless Fortress's existence. And once that happened, it would only be a matter of time before the Hundred Eyes Canyon's existence came to light. As Shifeng was a player with no background whatsoever, if he wanted to establish a foothold for himself in the Eternal Realm and compete against the various upper-ranking hegemonic powers and conglomerates, he needed to have sufficient funds. Meanwhile, the only method he could currently use to earn a large amount of capital was by purchasing the shops and lands of fortresses that were currently outside the various powers' notice. As for other avenues of making money, they were still outside of his current capabilities. After flying intermittently for over a dozen hours, Shifeng successfully arrived outside the Lightless Fortress before sunset. Although he encountered many high-leveled monsters on his way here, he managed to repel and shake them off by working together with the mutated Frostflame Dragon. Regarding the Lightless Fortress, rather than call it a fortress, it'd be more appropriate to consider it a small NPC city that housed a tiny population of only several tens of thousands of NPCs. The guards protecting the Lightless Fortress's gate were level 180, Tier 4 NPCs clad in uniform armor. 12 of them working together could form a battle array, and when their battle array was active, they could take on a Tier 5 NPC of the same level. Meanwhile, leading these Tier 4 NPC guards was a level 200, Tier 5 NPC guard captain. Even without the help of the Tier 4 NPC guards, the guard captain alone could overwhelm any Tier 5 player in the current Eternal Realm. As the Lightless Fortress was the only safe haven near the Hundred Eyes Canyon, it cost a whopping 2 eternal silver coins just to enter the city. It was an exorbitant entrance fee that could bankrupt many Tier 5 players. However, 2 eternal silver was nothing for Shifeng now that he had a fortune of 19 eternal gold. After paying the entrance fee, Shifeng promptly made his way to the Lightless Fortress's administration hall. Because of the 100 regional city reputation points he received from the Courtyard of Space's first clear rewards, he could directly purchase the lands and shops near the Lightless Fortress's airport. After browsing the choices available, Shifeng spent 17 eternal gold on buying 2 lands and 2 shops. Although the purchase had drained most of his available funds, it also relieved him of one of his worries. Once Shifeng was done with his business at the administration hall, he rented a room at a nearby hotel and chose to go offline. The next time he logged back into the game would be when the new city map activated. Previously, the emergence of the Eternal Realm had happened so suddenly that he didn't even have time to return to the God's Domain Association. As a result, he had no choice but to use one of the gaming cabins at the Star Lake Training Center. Moreover, to secure an advantage for himself in the Eternal Realm, he had spent 2 consecutive days in the game, putting himself at great risk of getting attacked by the Paimon conglomerate. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3403, Chapter 477, Dark Star. Chapter 3403, Chapter 477, Dark Star. Chapter 477, Dark Star. Star Lake City, Star Lake Training Center. 20 virtual gaming cabins were neatly lined in a row in a spacious lounge the size of 2 basketball courts. Following a hissing sound, the door of one of the cabins slowly opened. Why are there so many people here? When Shifeng emerged from the gaming cabin, he was surprised to see all the occupied gaming cabins around him. The Star Lake Training Center's gaming cabins were reserved for the City Legion's participants. Although some participants would use these cabins for duels from time to time, they would never use them to access God's domain long-term. The reason for this was safety concerns. While the training center had guards stationed in it, because it wasn't private property, anyone who wasn't explicitly banned by the city could visit the establishment. As a result, it wasn't out of the question for assassinations to happen. Shifeng had heard of many such instances during his previous life. For the sake of winning in city battles, some cities would send spies to infiltrate their opponents' public training centers and incapacitate key participants in one way or another. Hence, few participants would access God's domain via a public training center's gaming cabins long-term. Some cities even forbade their City Legion's participants from doing so. After looking around, Shifeng was surprised to find Hidden Soul among these cabins. He had thought she would have long returned to the God's Domain Association by now, but that didn't seem to be the case. However, before Shifeng could ponder why Hidden Soul was still logged into God's domain, a man and a security robot approached him. These security robots were strong enough to single-handedly subdue 2-star mental strength grandmasters and below. 2 of them working together could even keep a 3-star grandmaster pinned for a short time. They were effectively the strongest defensive force in the various cities. Many corporations and powers coveted these security robots and hoped to have several of them guarding their main headquarters. Unfortunately, these technological products were the various cities' core assets, and no city would sell its security robots. Only a few powerful conglomerates would put a few up for auction from time to time. Moreover, the currency used to bid for these machines was not star coins but God's domain's legendary items or items of equal value. Vice Commander Shifeng, by order of the City Lord and Legion Commander, everyone who comes out of the lounge's gaming cabins must leave the lounge right away, the man patiently explained to Shifeng. So, please leave the lounge now. Was this order issued because many people were forced to enter the game? Shifeng asked out of curiosity. He was forced to enter God's domain because of the Eternal Realm, but he found it hard to believe that this many people in Star Lake City had entered the Eternal Realm as well. Yes, there are quite a lot. It's not just the people in this training center. Many people across the city have been forced to log into God's domain as well, the man said, nodding. However, from the information we've gathered thus far, We only know that this situation is related to the newly emerged Eternal Realm. We still don't know about the specifics. It's related to the Eternal Realm? Hearing the man's words, Shifeng suddenly recalled Death Omen and Thousand Scars, two people who logically shouldn't have appeared in the current Eternal Realm. Could Soul and Snow be in the Eternal Realm as well? Earlier, Shifeng had checked his friends list and saw that he could contact neither Hidden Soul nor Gentle Snow. Evidently, both were in a state where they couldn't be contacted in God's domain. Combined with what he had just learned, there was a 90% chance that the two had somehow found themselves in the Eternal Realm as well. The current Eternal Realm was in a state where players couldn't contact those outside the Eternal Realm. Even in the Eternal Realm, if two players were not within a certain range, they would not be able to contact each other. Please leave this place quickly, Vice Commander Shifeng, the man repeated when he saw Shifeng suddenly falling silent. After taking another look at Hidden Soul, Shifeng promptly made his way out of the lounge. He had no way of contacting Hidden Soul in her current state. The only thing he could do was wait until Hidden Soul exited the gaming cabin. Fortunately, he wouldn't have to worry about her safety, seeing as the city had already dispatched security robots to guard the lounge entrance. After all, not just any power would be willing to send their 3-star grandmasters to conduct an assassination. Meanwhile, after stepping out of the lounge, Shifeng began inspecting the messages on his quantum watch. There was nothing he could do about Hidden Soul and Gentle Snow entering the Eternal Realm. However, it wasn't exactly a bad thing for the two to be in the current Eternal Realm. While the Eternal Realm was indeed filled with dangers, these dangers also came with the best opportunities available in the greater God's domain. Both Hidden Soul and Gentle Snow possessed incredible talent. Shifeng had seen it firsthand during his previous life. If the two could safely grow in the Eternal Realm, they could be of massive help to him in the future. After all, God's domain wasn't a single-player game. Why are there so many messages? Shifeng couldn't help but be astonished when he saw that he had over 100 unread messages. Most of these messages were from people applying to join Zero Wing's battle group. There were also some messages sent by the representatives of Star Lake City's corporations and powerful families, and these people requested to purchase city contribution points from him using star coins. Apparently, in just 2 short days, the exchange rate of Star Lake City's contribution points had increased from 125 to 130. This was an unprecedented high in Star Lake City. However, setting aside whether he even had any contribution points right now, even if he did have some, he had no intentions of humoring these requests. After all, city contribution points were of great importance to him. Not to mention, he had just made 200 million star coins off of Fry, so he had no reason to exchange his points for star coins. Shortly after Shifeng stepped out of the Star Lake Training Center, he saw an urgent message Xia Qingying sent him a day ago. An invitation to the Dark Star? The content of Xia Qingying's message surprised Shifeng. There were only a very small number of apex powers in the greater God's domain. Meanwhile, out of these apex powers, the Eternal Chamber of Commerce was an incredibly special entity. It could even be considered somewhat of a transcendental existence. This was because the Eternal Chamber of Commerce only did business in God's domain. Moreover, its business empire was beyond massive. For the sake of expanding its business empire, it had even gone out of its way to construct a satellite in the darkness plane to let God's domain's players conduct various transactions there. Meanwhile, the satellite's name was Dark Star. The way players could access the Dark Star was by invitation. So long as players had an invitation from the Eternal Chamber of Commerce, they could use the virtual gaming cabin to project a phantom of themselves directly onto the Dark Star. However, an invitation merely allowed players to visit the Dark Star. If players wanted the right to trade on the Dark Star, they would also need to pass the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's test. Xia Qingying was currently trying to pass the Chamber of Commerce's test, and she hoped that he, or more specifically, Zero Wing's guild leader Black Flame, could make good on their previous agreement to provide her with assistance when needed. Meanwhile, Xia Qingying's request was that Black Flame could become one of her foreign aides for the test. God's domain, Dark Star. The Dark Star was a moon-sized satellite floating in the void. Meanwhile, erected on this satellite was a majestic city. Currently, over 1,000 players were lined up outside the city, waiting to enter it. Outside of the Dark Star, these players were of varying levels and tiers. However, upon setting foot on the Dark Star, all of them were either elevated or suppressed to level 120, Tier 4. Standing in the corner of the city gate was a group of 1 man and 2 women. Of the 2 women, one was a beautiful and intelligent-looking cleric who was constantly looking at the time displayed on her wrist, her face looking gloomy and anxious as she watched the seconds go by. Meanwhile, this woman was none other than Xia Qingying's in-game character. Why isn't he here yet? When Xia Qingying saw that there were less than 10 minutes left before the test began, she couldn't help but look around in search of the person she had not seen in a long time. TL notes, I do not know if the darkness plane mentioned here is connected to the one mentioned in the main story in any way. It could be an entirely different thing. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3404, Chapter 478, Luminous Glory Lists Powerhouse? Chapter 3404, Chapter 478, Luminous Glory Lists Powerhouse? Chapter 478, Luminous Glory Lists Powerhouse? Vice President Xia, you don't have to worry about the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's test, even if that person doesn't show up, the short-haired young man standing next to Xia Qingying said. The young man was an elementalist wielding a staff made of withered wood, and he wore a calm look as he leaned against the city wall. I alone am enough to pass the test for you. You won't need any other foreign aid. The other woman in the group was a long-haired beauty clad in silver heavy armor with a sword and shield on her back. When the woman heard the elementalist's words, she glanced at the other party before turning to Xia Qingying and indifferently saying, Vice President Xia, regardless of whether your other foreign aid arrives, according to our agreement, so long as I pass the test, you will need to hand that item to me. Naturally, Xia Qingying answered, her mood growing complicated as she looked at the man and the woman before her. The short-haired young man was Invincible Swallow, a peerless paragon the Green God Corporation had nurtured from childhood. He was a Tier 6 mage god who could cast spells as easily as he spoke. Even before reaching Tier 6, he was a paragon capable of transcending tiers and killing the various powers paragons as if slaughtering livestock. Currently, Invincible Swallow's status in the Green God Corporation had already risen to a point where only the corporation's directors and above could command him. As for the beautiful shield warrior standing next to Invincible Swallow, her name was Xuanwu Qiza. Her existence was akin to a legend in the God's domain under the Green God Corporation's control. She had played a leading role in the establishment of a powerful empire, and all native players knew her as the Iron Valkyrie. Once, in the Greater God's domain, Xuanwu Qiza had destroyed a fortress owned by an upper-ranking hegemonic power in the Void Sea. Unfortunately, as she wanted to avoid retaliation from the upper-ranking hegemonic power in question, she chose to hide her identity. So, very few people knew about her achievement. Just as Xia Qingying finished speaking, a low voice entered her ears. Sorry to keep you waiting, Vice President Xia. Following this voice, a cloaked swordsman with somewhat messy hair approached the trio. You truly are a busy person, Guild Leader Black Flame, Xia Qingying said when she saw Shifeng. Had Shifeng been a few more minutes late, he would have missed the start of the test. However, despite her complaint, Xia Qingying still felt joy and relief to see Shifeng show up. Let's hurry inside. We're going to miss the test if we don't enter the city soon. At Xia Qingying's words, Invincible Swallow and Xuanwu Qiza simultaneously turned their heads to scrutinize Shifeng. According to the original plan, they were supposed to participate in the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's test as a group with Xia Qingying. However, when the time for the test was fast approaching, Xia Qingying suddenly decided to have someone else take the test in her place, and this person was none other than the cloaked swordsman currently standing before them. Not much needed to be said regarding Xia Qingying's strength. Not only was she a vice president of the Green God Corporation, but she had also spent quite some time operating in the Greater God's domain already. Thanks to the plentiful resources and opportunities she had access to, she was now one of the few fifth-floor experts in the Greater God's domain. For this reason, both Invincible Swallow and Xuanwu Qiza wholeheartedly acknowledged Xia Qingying's strength. Although the two of them were stronger than her in combat, because of her age and identity, they still regarded her as their equal, which was why they found it very surprising that Xia Qingying would let someone else take the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's test in her place. Black Flame. Invincible Swallow suddenly thought of something when he heard the form of address Xia Qingying used for Shifeng. The Luminous Glory List's 963rd ranked Azura Sword Emperor? So, you are the rising star of our God's Domain's new generation. Xuanwu Chiza also came to a realization as she looked at Shifeng. Although a 963rd ranked Luminous Glory expert was nothing in front of them, Xia Qingying was known for cherishing talents in the Green God Corporation. So, it made sense for Xia Qingying to relinquish her position in the upcoming test to allow their homeworld's rising star an opportunity to experience the greater God's Domain's grander stage. After all, the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's test could be regarded as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If luck was on this rising star's side, he might be able to achieve significant growth from this experience. Yes, that's me. Shifeng smiled and nodded. Both Invincible Swallow and Xuanwu Chiza could be considered old acquaintances to him. Though, neither of them knew him in this life. Alright, that's enough talking. We don't have much time left. You three can get acquainted after we enter the city and register for the test, Xia Qingying said, feeling a little exasperated when she saw the three people before her beginning to introduce themselves to one another. Immediately, she led the trio to the city gate. Upon arriving at the gate, Xia Qingying presented her invitation token, which she had received from an elder of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce, to the captain of the gatekeepers. I'm sorry, but I will need you to wait here for a bit, Vice President Xia. Administrator Wu just received news that a VIP will soon be arriving in the city for the upcoming test, so he has registered the VIP in advance. Once the VIP has arrived and gets verified, we will begin your registration, the gatekeeper captain nonchalantly said. Early registration? Xia Qingying's expression darkened as she looked at the gatekeeper captain. Dark Star's registration has always required a personal appearance. The person in question hasn't even shown up yet, and you're making us wait here. Don't be angry, Vice President Xia. We've already completed the registration procedures for the VIP, so you only need to wait a few more minutes, the gatekeeper captain said without a shred of guilt. Moreover, the other party is one of the Luminous Glory List's top 10 powerhouses. He is most likely to gain advanced membership in the test this time. He isn't someone we can afford to offend. A few more minutes. Xia Qingying immediately grew furious. You know as well as I do that the test is going to start in a few minutes. How are we supposed to participate in the test if we wait until he is done registering? Girl, you sure have a hot temper. I'm just a little late to arrive. Is there a need to get so heated up? Suddenly, a sarcastic voice came from afar. Then, a young man could be seen approaching the gate. Although the young man's actual tier in God's domain was only tier 4, the aura he exuded caused many of the experts present to subconsciously step away from him. Crap. Isn't he solitary madness? Sure enough, he is incredible. Even though I'm a tier 6 player in God's domain, my heart still shudders in his presence. When the crowd lining up outside the city gate saw the Berserker youth, they quickly recognized him and opened a path for him. You're finally here, Lord Madness. Please, head inside. When the gatekeeper captain saw the approaching young man, he promptly walked over to welcome the other party with a big smile. You. Xia Qingying's anger surged even higher when she saw the gatekeeper captain ignoring her group. However, just as she was about to give the gatekeeper captain a piece of her mind, a pitch-black sword light suddenly flashed by her side, cutting out a spatial tear that extended over 1,000 yards. The spatial tear disappeared just as quickly as it appeared. However, when everyone present saw the aftermath of the sudden attack, they couldn't help but fall silent. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3405, Chapter 479, Sanctuary's Inhabitant. Chapter 3405, Chapter 479, Sanctuary's Inhabitant. Chapter 479, Sanctuary's Inhabitant. What just happened? What an incredible strike. I can't believe he actually killed that solitary madness. This is crazy. That guy must be insane to take action on Darkstar. Is he not afraid of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce? Shortly after the pitch-black sword light disappeared, many of the players present turned to look at its origin with eyes full of shock and fear. After all, whoever had just killed Solitary Madness had done so in one move. It should be known that even the minimum requirement for players to get into the Luminous Glory list was to be at the 5th floor standard. Naturally, those capable of ranking among the list's top 10 were the best of the best among Tier 4 experts. Although players would have their basic attributes and physique fixed at the level 120, Tier 4 standard when staying on Darkstar, which prevented them from exhibiting their full strength, it still wasn't an easy task to kill a 5th floor expert, much less an expert of Solitary Madness's caliber. With Solitary Madness's perception of danger, very few attacks could overwhelm his defensive and evasive capabilities. More importantly, Darkstar was a trade hub created by the Eternal Chamber of Commerce. Taking action here was no different than slapping the apex power in the face. Now that the person you want to register is gone, can we begin our registration now? Shifeng calmly asked as he looked at the gatekeeper captain. You. The gatekeeper captain wore an incredibly ugly expression as he looked at Shifeng. A saint. Meanwhile, Xia Qingying couldn't help but turn to look at Shifeng in shock. She never imagined that not only would Shifeng dare to attack Solitary Madness, but he would also kill Solitary Madness in one move. Xia Qingying had long known that the man known as Black Flame was very strong and was suspected of having even mastered a saint-ranked mana technique. She was certain that his strength was beyond the information published by the Seven Luminaries Alliance. This was also why she had invited him as a helper. But she never thought he would be this strong. You sure are quick to make a move. Invincible Swallow said to Shifeng, laughing when he recalled the attack Shifeng had just executed. You are indeed qualified to be a helper if you can kill Solitary Madness in one move. What a busybody. After glancing at Shifeng, Xuanwu Kaisha looked away in dissatisfaction as she returned the sword and shield wielded to her back. Although Invincible Swallow and Xuanwu Kaisha had varying reactions, it was clear to anyone with eyes that both of them supported Shifeng's behavior. In fact, even if Shifeng didn't take action against Solitary Madness, the two of them would have subsequently acted. Are they not afraid of angering the Eternal Chamber of Commerce? You must be new to Darkstar, right? Although Eternal indeed controls Darkstar, this place is outside the city. So long as you don't make a move inside the city, Eternal won't care what you do. That's right. Moreover, the security personnel is obviously in violation of the rules. If they try to escalate this matter, they will be the ones to suffer instead. When the longtime guests of Darkstar waiting in line saw the nonchalant behavior of Xia Qingying's group, none of them found the group's reaction surprising. They even explained the reason for the group's reaction to the players new to the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's Darkstar. Flying Scythe. Hurry up and register us. Or do you not plan on following the rules? After snapping out of her daze, Xia Qingying looked at the time and loudly questioned the gatekeeper captain. The average guest on Darkstar might behave respectfully to the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's gatekeepers, but she was a guest invited by one of Eternal's elders. Even the Chamber of Commerce's administrators needed to show her respect. After all, such an invitation was not something money could buy. Money could only be used to purchase an entrance ticket to Darkstar. Not to mention, should she pass the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's test and become an official partner, her status in Eternal would exceed even that of the Chamber of Commerce's administrators. At that time, gatekeeper captains such as Flying Scythe would be obligated to greet her respectfully when they saw her. When Flying Scythe heard Xia Qingying's words, although his expression still looked incredibly ugly, he had no choice but to follow regulations and begin registering Xia Qingying's group of 4. Captain Scythe. Has our distinguished guest not arrived yet? Shortly after Flying Scythe finished registering Xia Qingying's group, a short and chubby middle-aged man approached the gate from inside the city, a look of impatience on his face. At the chubby man's question, Flying Scythe's expression turned even uglier. This was because the chubby man was none other than Wu Duanhan, an administrator of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce. The VIP you mentioned has already arrived, Administrator Wu, Flying Scythe said in a low voice. But he was killed before he could get verified. Killed? Wu Duanhan immediately exploded into a rage when he heard Flying Scythe's words. Someone dares to lay their hands on my guest. Yes, turning to look at the distant backs of Xia Qingying's group, Flying Scythe explained, Vice President Xia's group did it. They were in a hurry to enter the city, so they killed Solitary Madness since he was taking up their time. Xia Qingying. Wu Duanhan's face darkened as he turned to look at Xia Qingying's distant figure. She killed my distinguished guest simply because she couldn't wait a moment longer? Does she really think I can't touch her because she has an elder backing her? Administrator Wu, don't forget that the one backing Xia Qingying is that elder, Flying Scythe quickly reminded Wu Duanhan when he heard the chubby man's words. If you try to lay your hands on her, both of us will suffer. So what if that elder is backing her? Wu Duanhan sneered. The person Xia Qingying offended this time isn't just Solitary Madness but also that distinguished guest from one of the 12 sanctuaries. Not even that elder can save her this time. You mean that distinguished guest? Flying Scythe's eyes brightened. The distinguished guest in question was a peerless paragon originating from one of the 12 sanctuaries. For the sake of recruiting him, the Scarlet Merchant Alliance, a pseudo-apex power, had even promised him a vice-guild leader position. Besides that, the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's executives had also prepared an additional advanced membership slot in the upcoming test specifically for him. The reason for this was simple. The Greater God's Domain's 12 sanctuaries would rarely initiate contact with other realms. As a result, even apex powers would have difficulty extending their roots deep into the 12 sanctuaries. As for weaker powers, it would be even more difficult for them to do so. Normally, the various powers would try to befriend and recruit native paragons to better enter the 12 sanctuaries. It was especially so for peerless paragons. This was because every peerless paragon was bound to have an extraordinary origin. Meanwhile, even an apex power like the Eternal Chamber of Commerce could stand to benefit a lot from partnering with such an individual. Xia Qingying has been taking advantage of the fact that she has that elder's backing to disrespect me time and again. Now that she has made such a blunder, I'm going to let her know the consequences of offending me, Wu Duanhan declared smugly as he looked at Xia Qingying's distant figure. The distinguished guest in question had specifically invited Solitary Madness to participate in the test this time because Solitary Madness was one of the Luminous Glory List's few top 10 powerhouses willing to become his follower. After all, the competition for the Scarlet Merchant Alliance's guild leader position was intense, and securing it wouldn't be possible without enough experts. Now that Xia Qingying's group had killed Solitary Madness, it was a direct slap in the face to that distinguished guest. Once the elders hosting the upcoming test learned about this offense, they were bound to make Xia Qingying's group pay. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3406, Chapter 480 Hymn. Chapter 3406, Chapter 480 Hymn. Chapter 480, Hymn. Dark Star, Dark Moon City. Upon entering the city, Xia Qingying led the group to a teleportation channel that facilitated rapid travel around the city. Then, using the teleportation channel, they arrived at the center of Dark Moon City less than a minute after they entered the city. The Dark Star Auction House. Dark Moon City was a vast place. It was more than 10 times bigger than the holy cities found in the Greater God's Domain. It could easily accommodate a population of 1 billion, and over 100 million players entered and left the city daily. Of course, only a tiny percentage of visitors were actual partners or guests invited by the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's executives. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that 99% of the players entering the city were people who had bought an entrance ticket through real-world channels. The Dark Star Auction House could be regarded as Dark Star's heart. It was a place that any player who entered Dark Moon City would visit at least once. Otherwise, they would have wasted a trip to Dark Star. In the Dark Moon Auction House, one could find items commissioned by players originating from the Greater God's Domain's various realms being sold. In addition, one could also see various competitive events in which the participants were all experts among experts. Some of these participants might even be experts who had caused a huge uproar in the greater god's domain with their achievements. Meanwhile, so long as one could obtain a sufficiently high ranking in these events, one could enjoy greater privileges in Dark Moon City. The only problem was that one must become an official partner of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce before one would be eligible to participate in these events. Otherwise, one could only spectate from the side. As it so happened, the test to become an official partner of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce was also held in the Dark Star Auction House. Inside the arena on the Dark Star Auction House's 100th floor. Although the partnership test had yet to begin, the arena that could accommodate over 100,000 spectators was already packed with players. I'm looking forward to the test this time. Even though it's only a basic partnership test, 3 of Eternal's elders are going to preside over it. I know, right? You'll usually only see Eternal sending 3 elders for the advanced partnership test. If not for that peerless paragon from one of the 12 sanctuaries, the test this time would have probably had only 1 elder presiding over it like usual. Ha ha ha, the ticket I bought this time is money well spent. If there are going to be 3 elders presiding over the test, I wonder how many people can pass the first round. Excitement filled the eyes of the spectators present as they looked at the 3 individuals standing in the middle of the stage. The first round of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's basic partnership was a screening process in which participants would be put up against the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's representative. After all, God's domain was a place where might was right. Without sufficient strength, one could accomplish nothing. So, those seeking to become official partners of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce needed to have sufficient strength. Of course, the bar of this initial screening wouldn't be set very high. In past tests, participants only needed to last 10 seconds against the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's representative. If they could survive 10 seconds, they would proceed to the second and final round, where they would compete with each other for the limited partnership slots supplied by the Eternal Chamber of Commerce. However, unlike past tests, where only 1 elder would preside over the screening, the test this time would be presided over by 3 elders. It went without saying that the initial screening's difficulty had increased significantly. Quick, look. It's the Divine Glory List's world-breaking axe, Untold Path. Crap. It really is him. If the world-breaking axe is here, there's no need to wonder who's going to come in first place this time. That's right. I heard that he single-handedly obliterated a 100-man Tier 6 team from the Origin conglomerate some time ago. Even if his stats are suppressed to the Tier 4 standard right now, who here can possibly go up against him? There was a middle-aged man with unkempt hair standing in the middle of the stage, and he carried 2 large axes that radiated a blue glow. When the spectators spotted this middle-aged berserker among the participants, their breaths became labored, and their faces became fanatical. It was as if they had just seen the god they revered. As the cries of surprise among the spectator stands grew louder, many of the participants present also took notice of the middle-aged man in question. The world-breaking axe. Shafong couldn't help but scrutinize the middle-aged man with messy hair. There were 3 ranking lists that the 7 Luminaries Alliance periodically published across the entire Greater God's Domain, and they were the Luminous Glory List, the Sacred Glory List, and the Divine Glory List. Of these 3 lists, the first 2 recorded talents of the younger generation. Only the Divine Glory List was different. The Divine Glory List didn't document budding talents. It only documented established powerhouses. If one didn't have the strength to contend against Tier 6 gods, one couldn't even qualify for the Divine Glory List. Meanwhile, during Shafong's previous life, Untold Paths climbed to the 50th rank at his peak. Moreover, this was only after taking into account the old monsters that were no longer active on the public stage. If these secluded monsters were excluded, Untold Paths could easily rank among the top 10 of the Greater God's Domain's active Tier 6 experts. Even as an individual, he was an existence that the various apex powers had to take seriously. While everyone's attention was on Untold Paths, a large group of players arrived at the arena's entrance. These players consisted of experts on the Luminous Glory List, experts on the Sacred Glory List, and participants with prestigious backgrounds. At this time, though, every one of these individuals was walking alongside a young man clad in dark grey leather armor, all of their attention focused on the young man. Meanwhile, the instant this young man appeared, he instantly became the focus of everyone in the arena. Even the 3 elders responsible for presiding over the test couldn't help but take a look at him. So his abyss water. The rumored peerless paragon from one of the 12 sanctuaries? No wonder the Scarlet Merchant Alliance is willing to let him become one of its vice guild leaders. His presence alone is stronger than even Untold Paths. After seeing abyss water in person, I'm no longer sure who will be coming in first place in the test. As the young man clad in dark grey surveyed the arena like an emperor surveying his domain, both participants and spectators felt their souls shuddering. At the same time, many players present finally understood why the various Apex powers and pseudo-Apex powers coveted the 12 Sanctuaries' peerless paragons so much, even if these individuals didn't have any amazing achievements. The feeling Abyss Water gave off was akin to a machine created for slaughter. Moreover, his gaze did not look like one that belonged to a youth but an old monster who had lived for centuries already. It was incredibly sharp and penetrated deep into one's soul. Meanwhile, Xia Yingying couldn't help but frown when she saw Abyss Water stepping onto the stage. This was because standing next to Abyss Water wasn't just the participants of the upcoming test. There was also Wu Duanhan, whom Xia Qingying had ignored at the city's entrance. Currently, Wu Duanhan could be seen saying something to Abyss Water. In response, Abyss Water's expression fell by several degrees as he turned to look at Xia Qingying's group. These people have the nerve to mess with me. They must not know what death is, Abyss Water said, his chilly tone causing the surrounding players to shiver. The hostility shown by Abyss Water was apparent to everyone present. He also did not hold back his voice when he spoke. It was obvious he was indirectly hinting at the Eternal Chamber of Commerce to do something about this matter. Those people sure are pitiful, boss paths. With this, they probably won't even get past the first round, a hearty young man carrying a shield on his back said to Untold Paths, shaking his head as he looked at Xia Qingying's group. Many powers wished to befriend and recruit Abyss Water because of his status as a peerless paragon from one of the 12 sanctuaries. Even the Eternal Chamber of Commerce wouldn't be an exception. Pitiful. When Untold Paths heard the young shield warrior's words, he looked toward Xia Qingying's group of 4 out of curiosity, only to spot a familiar swordsman among the group. Immediately, he used a master-ranked identification skill on the swordsman, and the result greatly surprised him as he exclaimed, "It's him? Why is he here? Him?" When the young shield warrior saw the look of shock on Untold Path's face, he couldn't help but follow the other party's line of sight in confusion. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3407, Chapter 481, Silence. Chapter 3407, Chapter 481, Silence. Chapter 481, Silence. TL notes: I made a misinterpretation in Chapter 478. Apparently, Shifeng's not replacing Xia Qingying in the group. He is joining the group as the 4th member. I have already made the necessary changes to Chapter 478, but they're too lengthy, so I won't be listing them here. If you don't want to reread Chapter 478, just note that Xia Qingying's group will be taking the test as a group of 4 instead, and the reason Invincible Swallow and Xuanwu Kaisha were surprised was changed from Xia Qingying letting Shifeng replace her to Xia Qingying reacting in delight to see Shifeng showing up. Don't you find that swordsman familiar? Untold Paths said to the young shield warrior, smiling. And his name, you should have heard it not long ago. I have. The young shield warrior took another look at the swordsman among Xia Qingying's group of 4. Then, his eyes widened in shock as he exclaimed, Black Flame. He is Black Flame. Not long before they arrived on Darkstar, the World Light Conglomerate, the cross-realm conglomerate they belonged to, had issued a sky-high bounty to the conglomerate's executives. The bounty was worth a staggering 1 billion star coins, and the target was a swordsman named Black Flame. It should be known that a fortune of 1 billion star coins was something even heirs of conglomerates would covet. It was also a fortune that could make many experts on the Divine Glory list lose their minds. Yet, this sky-high bounty wasn't for killing Black Flame. It was only for them to acquire Black Flame's contact information. Indeed, Black Flame's contact information was worth 1 billion star coins. Even those who were well versed in the ways of the world, like Untold Paths, were stunned by this bounty, and they had to verify with the higher-ups whether there was a typo with the reward. It should be known that the life of an upper-ranking hegemonic powers vice guild leader was only worth around 200 million star coins. Even the head of Untold Paths, an expert on the Divine Glory list, was only worth 500 million. 1 billion star coins was already enough to have Untold Paths killed twice. Yet, the World Light conglomerate's core executives were willing to pay such a fortune just to obtain one person's contact information. Even as an executive of the World Light conglomerate, Untold Paths utterly failed to understand the core executive's thought process when he initially heard about the bounty. Only after one of the Grand Elders he had owed a favor to had come to ask for his help on the matter did Untold Paths learn why the conglomerate was looking to get in touch with Black Flame. Apparently, it was because of an incident that the World Light conglomerate had taken part in the Eternal Realm. In that incident, the team led by the Red Dragon Nation's Vice Guild leader Fry had been caught in an encirclement formed by 4 conglomerates, 17 upper-ranking hegemonic powers, and over 50 saint-level experts from the Holy Race. Normally, it should have been the end of the road for Fry's team. Yet, a swordsman named Black Flame had safely brought the team out of the encirclement. It wasn't an exaggeration to call this achievement a legend. When Untold Paths heard of it, he had thought the Grand Elder was joking with him. However, irrefutable video evidence showed that Black Flame had accomplished it. On top of that, Black Flame was also suspected of helping Fry's team secure the first clear of the first-ever World Mode Team dungeon discovered. With such terrifying strength and the ability to conquer World Mode Team dungeons, one could say that Black Flame was the best partner for the World Light conglomerate in the Eternal Realm. There was no way the conglomerate's higher-ups would miss out on such an opportunity. Boss! Looking at Shifeng's distant figure, the young shield warrior stuttered in excitement, "Shouldn't we go over and help him? That's a Black Flame we are talking about. What can we even do to help right now? Can you help them pass the preliminaries?" Untold Paths rolled his eyes at the young shield warrior. Then, with a wry smile, he continued, "Let's wait for the finals. When Abyss Water makes his move, we'll beat him up for Black Flame." The young shield warrior nodded eagerly. "Lord Abyss Water, please rest assured. I have already informed the elders. You won't need to dirty your hands on those people. I guarantee the elders will give you an account," Wu Duanhan said with a flattering smile. "If they don't kneel and apologize to you, they will face the wrath of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce. In addition, once the participating talents and spectating powers learn of your importance to the Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure they will be more than eager to help you vie for the Scarlet Merchant Alliance's guild leader position. They don't have to apologize to me. They just need to apologize to my friend," Abyss Water said, nodding to Wu Duanhan's words. Naturally, Wu Duanhan couldn't help but feel excited when he saw Abyss Water agreeing with him. "I will personally tell them when the time comes." Normally, Wu Duanhan would never dare to have any thoughts of offending Xia Qingying because of her ties with one of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's elders. But now, with Abyss Water's backing, even if he made life miserable for Xia Qingying, the elder behind her wouldn't dare to say anything. Subsequently, time passed by quickly as the various participating groups stepped onto the stage one after another. To the audience's shock, over 70% of the participating groups failed to last even 10 seconds against the 3 elders, while 20% of the groups passed with 1 or 2 casualties, and less than 10% passed with all members intact. In past tests, at least 70% of the participating groups could enter the finals. Yet, now, not even a third of the participating groups could do so. However, while this difficult test was bad news for the participating groups, it made for a thrilling spectacle for the spectators. Watching Untold Paths and Abyss Waters groups in action was especially exhilarating. Unlike others, these 2 groups did not have any foreign aid. Each group only had 3 members, and each member faced the 3 elders in one-on-one battles. The fights were incredibly intense, and it was especially so for Untold Paths and Abyss Waters fights. Untold Paths was like a god of war when he fought, pushing his opponent back by a step with every swing of his axe. Moreover, throughout the entire battle, Untold Paths only used one of his axes, never drawing his second one. As for Abyss Water, he was incredibly swift and elusive in his movements. He could split into over a dozen copies of himself at will. These copies were real yet fake. They were real when launching attacks and fake when taking attacks. If not for all of the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's elders being saint-level experts, Abyss Water's opponent would have suffered greatly in their fight. After Abyss Water's group finished their test, it was Xia Qingying's group's turn to step onto the stage. The group of 4 immediately attracted the entire audience's attention as soon as they appeared on stage. Abyss Water had clearly expressed his anger toward Xia Qingying's group before the start of the preliminaries. Hence, there was no way the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's 3 elders would let Xia Qingying's group pass easily. They might even kill Xia Qingying's group in the very first exchange as a show of sincerity to Abyss Water. Everyone, be careful. I doubt these 3 elders will make things easy for us, Xia Qingying reminded Shifeng and the others in a low voice. Xuanwu Kaisho and Invincible Swallow remained surprisingly silent in response to Xia Qingying's reminder. They understood the severity of the situation, and they were watching the 3 elders' every move with utmost seriousness. Their group of 4 was a temporary one formed by 4 people who had never fought together before. Hence, the coordination between them was bound to be stiff. On the other hand, the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's 3 elders were more than likely comrades in arms who had fought together on more than one occasion. At the very least, the 3's coordination was bound to be superior to their group of 4. Not to mention, all 3 elders were saint-level experts, and saints could exhibit much greater combat power when working together with other saints. Although the 3 elders had always chosen to fight separately when fighting the previous groups, it would be wishful thinking for them to assume that the 3 elders would do the same for their group of 4. Because of Abyss Water's issue, it was likely the elders would fight as a group. If they were not careful and were caught out of position, one of them might have to face the joint attack of 3 saints. Shortly after Xia Qingying finished speaking, a whistle sounded on the stage, announcing the start of the battle. But 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. To everyone's surprise, even until 10 seconds had passed and the whistle signaling the end of the match sounded, nothing happened. What's going on? Xia Qingying's eyes went wide with confusion as she looked at the 3 elders standing quietly across the stage, her mind failing to comprehend the situation. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3408, Chapter 482, World Creation, Second Form. Chapter 3408, Chapter 482, World Creation, Second Form. Chapter 482, World Creation, Second Form. What? That's it. Can someone tell me what's going on? Wasn't the Eternal Chamber of Commerce supposed to deal with Xia Qingying's group? Why didn't the 3 elders just stand there without doing anything? Or are they planning to let Abyss Water handle them personally? There's no way, right? No matter how I look at it, I feel like the treatment Xia Qingying's group received from the 3 elders is much better than that of Abyss Water's group. They didn't even make a single move. Everyone was stunned when they saw how Xia Qingying's group got through the first round. Previously, everyone thought Xia Qingying's group was doomed, and the group's 4 members would have to be revived. But now, not to mention being revived, they didn't even have to lift a finger. The 3 elders simply stood still and did nothing until the end of the match. At this point, even Wu Duanhen, who had been brimming with confidence less than a minute ago, was dumbfounded. Could the 3 elders really be planning to let Abyss Water take care of matters personally? Confusion and disbelief filled Wu Duanhen as he looked at the 3 elders on the stage. It was obvious to all that the Eternal Chamber of Commerce valued Abyss Water very highly. After all, the Chamber of Commerce had gone as far as to increase the number of advanced partnership slots in the test this time. It should be known that the annual basic partnership test would usually only offer 1 advanced partnership slot. It had been the case for many years now. Yet, this time around, 2 advanced partnership slots were offered. This just goes to show how much the Eternal Chamber of Commerce's higher-ups valued Abyss Water. Given how highly the higher-ups regarded Abyss Water, the 3 elders could not possibly be unaware of this. Now that Abyss Water was looking to establish his authority by taking down Xia Qingying's group, this was a great opportunity for the three elders to do Abyss Water a big favor. Meanwhile, this favor would be especially valuable if Abyss Water could recruit sufficient experts and win sufficient support to become the next guild leader of the Scarlet Merchant Alliance. Logically, the three elders should be more aware of this than Wu Duanhan. Yet, now, not only did they let Xia Qingying's group pass the preliminaries, but they had even done so by literally doing nothing. What exactly were they trying to achieve here? At this point, Abyss Water, who is standing nearby, also looks a bit solemn as he stares at Wu Duanhan and says in a slightly cold tone, "Administrator Wu, did you really inform the three elders properly? Are you playing me?" "Lord Abyss Water, I really did tell the three elders everything," Wu Duanhan said. Although he was filled with doubts, he still hurriedly tried to devise an excuse. "It's possible that the higher-ups want you to personally handle this matter in front of everyone, which is why the three elders let them pass the first round." "Fine, I'll deal with it myself." Abyss Water didn't say anything else. After all, the Eternal Chamber of Commerce was still an apex power. It had a lot of influence, even in the 12 sanctuaries. Moreover, he wasn't the only peerless paragon to have come out of the 12 sanctuaries. Many others had done so as well. It just so happens that I'm looking to let the geniuses and paragons here know what kind of gap exists between them and me. Wu Duanhan breathed a sigh of relief at this. He was truly afraid Abyss Water would dig deeper. After all, he was only expressing his own thoughts, and he honestly had no idea what the three elders were thinking. On the other side, Xia Qingying and the others walked down from the battle stage, full of doubts, as they quietly waited for the three elders to announce the start of the second and final round. Of the group of four, only Shifeng faintly felt the three elders' attention focusing on him for a moment. After a while, "Everyone, the preliminaries are over. Up next will be the finals," said the oldest elder, a level 219, tier 6 berserker, as he swept his gaze across the groups below the stage. For the finals, all groups that have passed the preliminaries will be teleported to random locations on a battlefield. Your job is to fight and survive, and groups will be ranked based on the order they are eliminated. There are 2 advanced partnership slots and 8 basic partnership slots available in this test, and they will be given out to the top 10 groups in order of ranking. That means the last 2 groups standing will receive the advanced partnership slot. The round will last for half an hour, and the battlefield will continuously shrink throughout the round, so you won't have to worry about finding opponents. Now, let the final round begin. As the level 219, tier 6 berserker elder declared the start of the finals, over 30 qualified groups were forcibly teleported to a vast arena below the platform. The entire battlefield had a radius of 2,000 yards. For players with physiques and basic attributes at the level 120, tier 4 standard, this size was neither too big nor too small. It was enough for 30+ groups to fight without affecting other groups, but it also allowed other groups to quickly gather and fight in bigger groups. This setting made it so that players weren't tested just for their combat capabilities but also for other factors, such as situational awareness. What a small world. You guys killed Solitary Madness at the city gate before, right? Looking at Xia Qingying's group standing less than 100 yards from him, Abyss Water calmly said as if passing judgment, "Now, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Submit to me, apologize to my friend when you leave, and I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'll make sure you're the first to be eliminated from the test. In your dreams." Without hesitation, Invincible Swallow swung his wand and summoned 4 magic arrays for 4 tier 4 curses under his feet. Seeing this, Xuanwu Kaisho promptly charged toward Abyss Water, her body transforming like a moving streak of light as she closed in on the assassin. She did not intend to give the other party any opportunities to set up a sneak attack. At the same time, Xia Qingying raised her hand and created a holy barrier on all 4 members of their group. After doing so, she cast the Tier 4 Hypersensitivity State and the Tier 4 Divine Reflection for Xuanwu Kaisho, the former greatly enhancing the target's perception and the latter having the ability to reflect one magical attack. This left Abyss Water, who was just an assassin, with only the option of close combat against Xuanwu Kaisho, a shield warrior. As a shield warrior, Xuanwu Kaisha was naturally much stronger in terms of strength, endurance, and defense than an assassin of the same level. An assassin of the same tier would be committing suicide if they tried to face her in direct combat. Not a bad response. Even when Abyss Water saw Invincible Swallow, Xuanwu Kaisha, and Xia Qingying attacking him together, he simply sneered in disdain. It's a pity none of you understand mana. As soon as Abyss Water finished speaking, terrifying mana erupted from his body, instantly causing everyone within a 200-yard radius to feel as if their bodies had been submerged in a swamp. At the same time, a faint, illusory miniature world appeared, inhibiting the flow of mana in Invincible Swallow's 4 magic arrays and drastically reducing Xuanwu Qisha's speed. Subsequently, Abyss Wait swung the dagger in his right hand in the direction of Xuanwu Kaisha, who was still over 30 yards away. When Xuanwu Kaisha saw this, she instinctively raised her sword and shield to cover her front. Boom! Following a loud bang, Xuanwu Kaisha was lifted off her feet and sent flying backward by several yards. Even when she landed and stabilized her posture, the sword and shield she wielded continued trembling uncontrollably. After just one exchange, it became apparent that Abyss Water was not at all inferior to Xuanwu Kaisha in terms of strength. On the contrary, he was even leagues above her, and if Xuanwu Kaisha had not used an absolute technique to deflect some of the force, her flight backward would have covered a minimum of 20 yards. Miniature World. How can he use World Creation's second form at Tier 4? Xia Qingying was greatly shocked as she looked at the illusory world that had formed around them. For players to use World Creation's first form at Tier 4, they would need to be at the standard of saints at the very minimum. As for World Creation's second form, it was simply unheard of for players to use it at Tier 4. After all, even Tier 5 saints had difficulty using it. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,